And all of a sudden, your thing that was so unique and so differentiated is starting to look just like everybody else. And then the companies are like, well, dang, now we have to shift this positioning, if they even know what that is. And they don't know how to shift it because they didn't know how they made it up in the first place.
That's April Dunford, and she's helped hundreds of tech companies nail their positioning.
I should be able to say, look, you want to pick us because we are the only product on the planet that can deliver you a combination of this plus this value.
Positioning is all about helping your product stand out against the competition.
We start with this idea, if you didn't exist, what would a customer do?
And very often, your strongest competition is nothing.
We lose half our deals to do nothing in B2B.
April is the best-selling author of Obviously Awesome, and in her latest book, Sales Pitch, she describes how to take action on that great positioning and close more deals. Key to that is you don't sell. Instead, help your customers buy.
It's really about helping a customer confidently make choices so they don't get all the way down to the end and go, I don't know.
And to illustrate that point, we have a really crappy analogy.
And he says, I'm going to teach you how to buy a toilet. And I was like, fantastic.
Welcome to Crafted, a show about great products and the people who make them. I'm Dan Blumberg. I'm a product and growth leader, and on Crafted, I'm here to bring you stories of founders, makers, and innovators that reveal how they build game-changing products and how you can too. Crafted is brought to you in partnership with Docker, which helps developers build, share, run, and verify applications anywhere without environment confirmation or management. More than 20 million developers worldwide use Docker's suite of development tools, services, and automations to accelerate the delivery of secure applications. Learn more at docker.com. And Crafted is produced by Modern Product Minds, where my team and I can help you take a new product from 0 to 1 and beyond. We specialize in early-stage product discovery, growth, and experimentation. Learn more and sign up for the Crafted newsletter at modernproductminds.com.
It's interesting to be the positioning expert because a lot of the companies I work with, I'm dealing with the founder, and the founder generally has a technical background, not necessarily a marketing background. And people don't really get what it is because it's a bit of a difficult concept. So sometimes people will say, oh, positioning is exactly the same as messaging. And I'll be like, well, not really. You use positioning to build your messaging, but it's not exactly the same thing. Or they think we're writing a tagline. Like, people really want to write taglines. There's a certain kind of person, when you say positioning, they're like, I got it. Innovate, explorate, fascinate. That's it.
Yeah.
We're done.
Brilliant.
And I'm like, I think it's more than that. So in my world, positioning defines how your product or your company is the best in the world at delivering something, some value that a well-defined set of customers cares a lot about. I like to think of it a little bit as like context setting for products. And context is really important because when we encounter something new, we will look for the clues in the context about what this thing is all about. When we're talking about tech products in particular, like if I come to you and I say, hey, I got this thing, it's cool, man. And what it is it's a CRM, customer relationship management. If I just told you that, like, it's a CRM, and didn't tell you anything about it, like who it's for or what it does or, what it costs, anything, you would make a bunch of assumptions about that product based on what you know about that market category. So I say it's a CRM and I'd be like, oh, well, you must compete with Salesforce. And,
right.
You would make assumptions about what that product does. Like, it's tracking deals on a pipeline, tracking companies, tracking revenue. You would make assumption about who you sell that to. Like, I sell that to the VP sales. So that's who buys the CRM. I would even make assumptions about the pricing, which is kind of funny because, there's CRMs for little companies and they're way cheaper than CRMs for big companies. So here's how this works. Like, if I do a good job of positioning and that positioning sets off a set of assumptions about my product that are true, that's great. I've just saved marketing and sales a whole lot of hassle. But if I do it wrong and I position myself in a way that sets off a set of assumptions in the minds of customers, and those assumptions are wrong, Well, then I got this problem that I'm saying, oh, hey, I'm a CRM. And people say, well, great, show me how you manage accounts. And you'd be like, oh, no, we don't manage accounts. And we'd be like, wait, how does that work? Like, you must compete with Salesforce. No, we don't compete with Salesforce. And then you're like, well hang on. So people often poorly position products because what they started out to build isn't actually what they've got.
As we were getting started, we were talking about the distinction between a podcast and a radio show, and each of those has different connotations.
Really connotations. Like I think in a podcast, you don't need to wear the big headphones. I'm like, we're on a podcast here, man. Like I'm on YouTube. I don't have to wear those headphones.
Yeah.
YouTubers don't wear those big headphones, man.
Yeah, you're not wrong. I'm getting used to my face being out there more. My background is radio. You've written that every company you've ever worked with has struggled to make their awesomeness obvious. What stops companies from being, to quote the title of your book, obviously awesome?
Well, so I'll correct that a little bit because I think lots of companies stumble into great positioning and this stuff just works and they don't have a problem with it. So I've worked at companies where it's just happened. Like the product got built, the positioning was kind of obvious, and it just worked. And nobody had a problem figuring out what this thing was and why it was important to them. And they just sold like heck. But a lot of times what happens is it works for a while and then the market shifts on you. And so what happens is you start getting so successful that other competitors start piling in and they kind of do what you do. And all of a sudden your thing that was so unique and so differentiated a couple of years ago is starting to look just like everybody else. And then the companies are like, well, dang, now we have to shift this positioning, if they even know what that is. And they don't know how to shift it because they didn't know how they made it up in the first place. So I think some companies they kind of stumble into this and they don't have a problem with positioning at all. It just all kind of works. But often it degrades over time. And then the company's in a real problem. Now, some companies have it right from the beginning. Like, I've worked with a lot of companies where they're selling, but it's a struggle because the thing is so new and so innovative that it's really hard to explain what it is and what it's all about. I'm thinking about a team I was working with this week and really fantastic, innovative product in the data space, but kind of tricky to explain what it is because, it's not a database. It's not an ETL tool. It's not an information integration tool. It's not a BI tool. So what exactly is it?
So how do you do it? I know coming up with great positioning is not using the fill in the blanks positioning statement that drives you crazy. So what's step one?
Specifically, when I talk about my stuff, it's very focused on B2B technology companies. And so when I looked at it, I knew the positioning statement wasn't going to work because it was kind of just like writing positioning down. Like, there's a blank there that says market category. It didn't tell me how do I figure out my best market category. So I'm just guessing and writing it down and calling that doing positioning, which didn't make any sense to me. And so the way I reasoned it out was, and maybe this is just a bit of my engineering background showing through here, but I was like, well, why can't we break it into pieces and solve for the pieces and then put the pieces together? That's how we solve stuff in tech. That's why I was like, let's bust it into pieces. And so breaking it into pieces wasn't that hard because we kind of agree on what the pieces are. And those are like the blanks in the positioning statement. We got these 5 things. So the first thing is competitive alternatives. Like if you didn't exist, what would a customer do? Or put another way, like what do you have to beat in order to win a deal? So that's the first thing, like alternatives to what you do. Second one is distinct capabilities. So things you as a company or your product can do that the other alternatives can't do. The third thing is differentiated value. So the customer doesn't actually care that much about your features. They care, what does this feature do for my business? Like, how is this going to help me make money? How's this going to help me save money? And so the differentiated value is, this is the value that you can deliver that your competitors can't. And then in B2B, we're never trying to sell to everybody. We're trying to sell to a specific set of customers. So what's our definition of a really good fit customer? And then the last thing is market category. Am I email or am I chat? Like, so what the heck is this thing? So what's the context we're going to position it in? So those are the 5 things. And then once I got to that point where it was all broken apart, I thought, well, I've got to figure out the right answer for each of these piece parts. But the first thing you notice when you approach it that way is that all of the piece parts have a relationship to the others. So let's take differentiated value because it's really important. Like that's the answer to the question, like why pick us? The value that my product can deliver that no one else can, like where does that come from? Like what is that dependent on? It's dependent on my differentiated capabilities. Like I don't get to just make it up. It comes from the stuff I can do that the other guys can't. But then when I think about it, like, my differentiated capabilities are only differentiated when I compare them to a competitor. So, those three things are really tied. Like I don't get to just make up one and without knowing the others. And then even if I look at like, what's my best fit customer? Well, my best fit customer is a customer that really, really cares a lot about the value they can only get from us. That's what makes them a good fit. So I can't figure out best fit customer without really understanding what my value is. And then market category is a little bit more esoteric. But if we think about it, like the best context to position my product in is the context that makes this value kind of obvious to these people. Mm-hmm. So, but then context would actually determine who my competitor is. So, oh no, everything relates to everything else. So where do I start? And for a long time, I thought, well, this is why we don't have methodology because there's no good place to start. And so what you do is you pick a starting point and you work your way around and you get a guess, right? So here's my candidate positioning. I take it out to the market. I test it. If it works, great. I run with it. If it doesn't, I throw it out and I come back and I take another guess at it. So I did that for years and years. It was terrible, actually, because, it was great if you got it right the first time. But if you didn't get it right the first time, everybody's really frustrated with you. So how I get out of that mess is a really long story. But the short version is, folks on the product side are really into Clayton Christensen, jobs theory, jobs to be done. Yep. And I kind of went down that rat hole, reading all the books. And I'm kind of like, well, how does that intersect with this? And where I got to was we actually have to start with competitive alternatives. If we don't start with competitive alternatives, what we get is positioning that sounds good in the office, but doesn't actually work out in the market because it's insufficiently differentiated from the other options. And like even more specifically, and your audience is more technical folks, like if they're familiar with jobs theory, like how I really, like my big aha was, I was listening to somebody talk about the milkshake story. So there's this famous milkshake story. I don't know if you know about it. Jobs.
Sure. I'm one of those people you just alluded to, product person into jobs theory. And
for people out there listening that may not know it, like the milkshake story is like, there's this company, they're a fast food restaurant. They're trying to improve the milkshake, and so they're looking at how do people consume milkshakes or whatever. And they find out this little piece of data, which is a whole bunch of people are buying the milkshake in the drive-through in the morning. Like, what is going on? So then they interview these people and they're like, what's happening here? And they said, well, they got a long drive and they're bored, but they're hungry. And they're in the car. So, they don't want to buy like a breakfast sandwich because that's messy. And they don't want to buy a donut maybe because that's messy, but also it's over too quick, and they need a little boredom relief. So the milkshake actually does all the jobs. Like it's kind of thick. It lasts a long time. It fits in my cup holder. It doesn't make a mess, so they're buying this thing for breakfast. Yep. The aha moment I had about that was, well, heck, like, what you found out is what you assumed was your competition is not your competition. And so if we started there, then we could actually build up the positioning that would work for these people because they're trying to make a choice between muffin and milkshake. And we think they're trying to make a choice between Coke and a milkshake, and that's wrong, right? So the way my positioning methodology works then is we start with this idea, if you didn't exist, what would a customer do?
Yeah.
They would either stick to their status quo thing, like whatever they already have, which in B2B software, it's often Excel, or I'm just going to do it manually. Yeah. Or maybe I do nothing because I don't even think I have the problem. And then if the customer decides they're going to buy something, do they make a short list and then they compare you against direct competitors? And again, we could Google, other companies that look like us or do things that we do, but you're often very surprised when you ask a customer, like what actually lands on a short list and who do they actually compare us to? That list is often much shorter than the list of companies that could compete with us. So anyways, we start there. That's our stake in the ground. Like, this is what I got to beat in order to win a deal. And so once I have that, then I can say, well, what have we got that they don't have? Like, feature function of the product or capabilities of the company. So there's all the features of the product, but maybe our pricing model is different, or maybe the way we do support is different, or something else. I'm going to list all that stuff. And then once I have that, then I can go down that list of things. And for everything, I can say, so what? So, okay, I got this great AI feature. It's so advanced. So what? Like what value does the customer get out of that? Like, what does it let the customer do?
Yeah.
How does it help them make money? And when I'm going down this list and saying for every single feature saying, so what, I don't want to end up with 9,000 points of value. I want to end up with 2 or 3 value themes or value buckets. And once I get there, I should be able to say, look, you want to pick us because we are the only product on the planet that can deliver you a combination of this plus this value. And for each of those value points, the features are tucked in underneath, and this is how we do it. Now, once I have that, then I can say, okay, we're the only people that can deliver this stuff. But you know what? Not everybody cares about that stuff the same. So what are the characteristics of a target account that make them really, really, really care a lot about the value that can only come from you? Like, is it bigger companies that care more than little companies? Is it companies that have a Microsoft stack? Is it companies that have more than 5 people in the accounting department care about this more? Is this companies with a certain kind of business model? So I'm trying to figure this out in a bottoms up way. Like, if I've got this value, who's a good fit for it? And then the last thing's market category. I got this value. I'm trying to communicate it to these people. Am I email or am I chat? Am I database or data warehouse? And what's the best way to contextualize this thing so that we make it really easy for these people to figure out what this product is actually all about?
Yeah. I love your focus on one of the strongest competitors out there, which is do nothing, which you've talked about. Do nothing is a tough competitor, right? Like the switching costs are really high.
Deals to do nothing in B2B. And it's funny to think like that, because if you talk to your salespeople, you say, who's our biggest competitor? They'll tell you whoever they lost the last deal to, right? They'll say, oh, it's Oracle. We're losing to Salesforce.
Yeah.
But if you look at the data, and you analyzed all the deals you didn't get, the stat on this is 40 to 60% of B2B purchase processes end in no decision. So it's actually the biggest competitor we have is customer embarks on a journey to go buy something, and at the end they go, forget it.
Yeah.
They don't buy anything.
Yeah. As you've written in your latest book, I'm not going to get fired for saying, let's stick with what we've got.
Let's stick with what we've got. It's it's working okay. It's not perfect, but it's working all right. What's really interesting about that data is when you scratch at that, like people fall into 2 categories. Like when they do nothing, either they looked at the other competitors out there and decided, you know what, the thing we have is good enough. So they made a conscious decision to stick with whatever they're doing now. We could just keep doing this in Excel. Like, we could just hire some interns. But the majority of the time, that's actually not true. The majority of the time, the customer has looked at all their options, gotten right down to the end, and has basically chickened out. So what's happened is they've got down and they're like, I don't know, man. I'm going to have to recommend this to my boss, and I'm not sure I'm making the right choice here. And this happens an incredible proportion of the time.
Yeah. Another thing you've written that resonates with me is don't sell your product, but rather help your customers buy it. And you share a story of 2 different salespeople that you met when you were trying to buy a toilet. And so this feels like an incredibly LinkedIn optimized question, but I'm going to ask anyway. Please tell us, April, what buying a toilet has to do with B2B SaaS.
So here's what I've learned about trying to teach people stuff. And I learned this in the first book when I was trying to teach people about positioning. If I came in and I went straight to a tech example and I said, look, I had this thing and we thought it was a database, but it turned out it was a business intelligence tool.
Yeah.
What I get is technical people would get all caught up in the technical details, right? And they were like, yeah, but did it have a roll up and cube function? I mean, that's why, and I'd be like, no, like forget about that.
Yeah.
And so I started talking about, what's the difference between muffins and cake? Those are the same thing, right? They're just, but a muffin, I pay $1, and a cake is different. A cake, I have different competitive alternatives. Muffin is different. Muffin is breakfast. Cake, it's dessert, So I started doing that for positioning. So I have all these analogies of, what's a cake pop? Is it cake on a stick or is it more like a lollipop? And so I started using those. So the second book, I'm talking about how to take your positioning and turn it into a sales pitch. And so I have lots of examples of sales pitches that I've transformed working with companies where, we used to pitch it like this, but now we pitch it like this, and that works way better. But I knew that if I was going to write this book about it, I was going to have to come up with an example that had nothing to do with tech. So I was thinking back at my own history of like, one of the key concepts to understand in selling software is that we think it's really easy to buy because we know it. Right. So let's say we're selling CRM. We're like, how hard is it to buy a CRM? Like, you just look at the features, whatever. Like, it's not that hard to buy a CRM. But what we forget is that the customer often has never bought a CRM before. Because how often do you buy a CRM? It's like a once every 10 years kind of a purchase, right? And so I wanted to have an example of something that I bought that I thought was going to be really easy to buy. And it turned out it was really hard. And so the example that came to mind was I did a renovation on my bathroom in my house. And the contractor came in and he's doing this reno and he says, April, you got to go pick out a toilet because we're going to replace this toilet. And I'm like, okay, toilet. I never bought a toilet before, but how hard can this be? It's just a freaking toilet. And then I go to the store and the sales rep is there and he's like, what kind of toilet do you want? And I'm like, dude, one that flushes? Like, what do you mean, what kind of toilet do I want? Yeah. And the guy says, toilets are back in the corner, like, go pick one. And I go back there and there's like 100 toilets. And they're all really different. And, some of them cost $100, some of them cost $1,000. And I'm like, oh man, this is going to be really hard. And then every toilet had this description and there were all these features. And then they were like, oh, this one has the gravity assist flush. And I'm like, what the hell is that? And it's like, this one has a flapper and this one doesn't. I'm like, what's a flapper? Why do I care about flappers? And so I'm thinking, man, this is just like buying software, right? Like, we're talking to them about, hey, I've got this AI thing, or hey, I've got and the customer's like, should I care about that? I don't even know what that is. So in my case, what happened is I looked at all these toilets and I was like, man, I don't want to pick a bad one. And then I left and I went home and I did all this research. And what happened is like, after a couple of weeks of doing this, I just gave up. I just said, look, I'm a busy person. I don't have time to be a freaking toilet expert. I don't want to be a toilet expert. I just want a toilet that works. And then I was like, you know what? The toilet I've got just works. There's nothing wrong with it. It's a little old, but there's nothing wrong with it. So I'm just going to stick with the one I got. And that's just like what people do in software. It's the same thing. They're just like overwhelmed. And so in this particular case, it turned out I didn't have the choice. So I went back to my contractor and I said, I'm just going to keep this one because I'm too busy. And the guy said, no, we pulled it out. We recycled it. It's gone. And I was like, shit. Then I had to go back. But I went to a different toilet store and I got this toilet salesman who comes in and he says, I'm going to teach you how to buy a toilet. And I was like, fantastic. And what he did was he said, look, like, you only need to know 3 things about a toilet. It's like quality, aesthetics, space. And I was like, okay. And he said, look, like, see there's these cheap ones over here and there's these more expensive ones. And it's mainly all these features that you're trying to figure out. It's just a measure of quality. And I was like, dude, who buys a low quality toilet? Like, that sounds stupid. Like, why would you do that? But plumbers are expensive. Yeah. And he said, well, actually, some toilets barely get used. So I'm like, okay, but in this case, it's a pretty busy bathroom. So I'm like, I don't want the low quality toilet. And he says, okay, well, we eliminate all those. And now we're down to half the toilet. And then he says, aesthetics is the second thing. Like, some people got a certain look they're going for in the bathroom and they want a gold toilet or whatever. And you're going to pay extra for that. And I said, well, I don't have any toilet fashion requirements. So we eliminate all those. And then he says the last thing is space. Like, some toilets, the tank fits into the wall. And then we're down to 3 toilets. Like, we've done this in like 4 minutes. Yeah. We're down to 3 toilets. And I'm like, oh, like, which one should I pick? And the guy says, look, I'm actually the Toto rep. So I'm going to tell you to pick the Toto one. But you know what? You could pick any one. He says, I just believe in the Toto product. That's why I work for them. Go back and search online if you want. The Toto one's going to cost you like $80 more. But in my opinion, it's the better toilet. If you just want to pick a toilet and never think about toilets again, pick that one. So I was like, good, great. Slapped down my car, bought the Toto toilet, still working great, I must add. What I was trying to illustrate with that story is like, why aren't we doing that for our customers? Like, instead of just overwhelming them with like, I got the AI, I got the advanced analytics, I got the whatever, all these features. Like, why are we not just painting a picture of the whole market and saying, look, these kind of solutions are good at this and bad at this. And these kind of solutions are good at this or bad at this. And we are designed for customers that look like this, that want this. And so what I'm doing is giving you the rubric or the guide so that you can make your own mind up and you can feel confident that you've made the right choices, you made the right trade-offs, and you pick the thing that's the best fit for you.
I'd love that. Now that we have a lot of the principles, I'd love if you could give an example of how this manifested with one of the tech companies that you've advised.
I'll give you one. They've been acquired by Salesforce. And so the founder doesn't mind anymore if I tell his secrets about his sales pitch, because he's, rich and acquired. So they're called Level Jump. And so what they have is sales enablement software. So think software to help a new sales rep get up to speed really quickly. And it's a really, really crowded market. So the first thing we did with Level Jump when I was working with them is we worked on the positioning. Who's their competition? Well, their competition kind of falls into three categories. Like you could just put stuff on a shared drive, it's free, and let the reps consume it and train themselves. That's the free, easy thing. But if you got a lot of reps, that starts getting to be hard, and it turns into the Wild West. We don't know who's consumed what content, and do they have the right versions and all that stuff. So you might move to essentially a content management system, which allows you to put a lot of content in there, do version control on it, make sure it's all good, and then you can track who's consuming what and all that sort of stuff. And there's a whole bunch of solutions out there that are essentially content management system for sales. And then but the other choice is you could buy an LMS, which is a learning management system, which is I can define the courses and I can see how far you went in the course and I can certify you and all that stuff. So this is a competitive landscape. So if we think about differentiated capabilities, like there's a bunch of differentiated capabilities they had, but the main one was they were the only solution built on top of Salesforce, meaning they're right in Salesforce. Now, the question you might ask is, so what? Like, what's the value of that? And the value of that's really interesting because they're built inside Salesforce, their data is in the same database as the sales data. So what that means is I can actually use sales metrics to figure out, did the sales enablement work? Meaning, did it improve time to first deal? Did it improve time to make quota? Like, this is what we really care about. And so that's their big differentiator, is we can prove whether or not the sales enablement worked. Okay, so if you look at, well, how could we pitch this? A feature-oriented pitch on that would be, hey, you click on the button that says, give me a demo. The customer comes in, and the rep would be like, oh, hi, I'm here to show you Level Jump. Here's how we log in. Here's how we set up the training. Here's the kind of training you can do. Here's how a rep consumes the training. Feature. And at the very, very end, and this is what they were doing, at the very, very end, they'd be like, oh, yeah, and here's how you measure the results. Does it sound different than the other things? Not really. Like, it does what a content management system, yeah. Does it do the same thing as a learning management system? Yeah. Kind of sounds the same. So it's not really answering the question for the customer, like, why should I pick you over anybody else? Instead, we reworked the pitch. So the rework pitch goes like this. So I'm pitching to the head of sales enablement, right? So I come in and I'm like, hi, head of sales enablement. We're going to give you the demo, but hang on a sec. Before we get there, why is sales enablement important? You know why it's important? Because every day your rep's not making quota costs you money.
Yeah.
We want to speed that up as much as we can. That's our goal here, right? Now, you got choices. And you could put stuff on the shared drive, but that doesn't work, right? You're going to grow out of that. It's going to be the Wild West. You could pick a content management system. And all these guys out here, they're kind of like that. It help you organize the stuff. You can tell who's consuming what, all that stuff. Or you get really fancy. You could pick one that's like a learning management system. Now I got courses, training, certification, all that stuff. You know what none of those things does? When you got to go to your boss and your boss says, did that training work? What do you show them? Wouldn't it be great if you could show them and you could say, look, this is how this improved time to first deal. This is how this improved time to make quota. We want that, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, great. Now let me show you how we do that. And I'm not even going to bother showing you the stuff that all the other competitors do. And I'm going to go right to the meat and say, look, We're the only ones built on top of Salesforce. Here's how we track this. Here's a report you can show your boss. Here's where you can see exactly what's working and not working so that the next version of your sales enablement gets better. We are the only sales enablement product that allows you to demonstrate results.
Yeah.
That's a way better pitch.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you just quoted the outputs to outcomes aphorism, right? Not measuring the number of courses completed or anything. It's just revenue. Let's get right to deals closed. Exactly.
Yeah. And again, like we get, as technical people, right? Like we're technical people inside tech companies. We love talking about features. It's our comfort zone. But we just assume that the customer can figure out why the features matter. And often, if our feature is really cool and really advanced and new, customers just don't know. Like, if you think about a lot of consumer tech that you consume, like you've been trained to do the translation between value and features. We can't assume that the customers know as much as we do. We are experts in solutions. Customers are experts in pain.
I'd love to talk a little bit about personal brand and positioning. You've not only advised many tech companies, you've also built a very compelling brand around yourself and your expertise. And I'd love to understand a little bit of how you did it and advice you may have for others who are embarking on a solopreneur journey.
But I do think as a solopreneur, good positioning can be a really powerful thing. Like when I started out, I didn't really know what I wanted to focus on. And I was a little bit worried that I couldn't productize positioning as a service. I was worried that positioning is something that the team really has to do. But what I did know was that, if I came out and just positioned myself as a fractional CMO, like there's thousands of fractional CMOs. So how am I any different? And why not pick a better one than me? And so I kept circling around. Well, the thing that I have a lot of experience in is this positioning methodology. And then it took me maybe 2 years to figure out, how could I work with companies? Like, how could a positioning expert actually deliver value for a company, given the idea that I cannot be an expert in their stuff? And so I eventually landed on my offering, which is I come in as a facilitator. We bring together a cross-functional team from the company, and then I come with a process to work people through that takes the opinions out of it as much as we can and helps the company get to a good result. And then I'm also a person there that knows what good looks like. So, I can push the team until we've got something that we think is really good. And so that works well. And once I decided I could do that, then I just stuck to that. And I think it's very hard when you're a consultant at the beginning to just pick it and stick it.
Yeah.
And say, I'm just going to do this one thing because this is the only thing where I'm better than everybody else. And I'm going to say no to all the kind of distracting business that I could do it, but I'm not really the best at it. And then I think that you get this compounding effect. Like at this point, I've done almost 300 workshops with B2B tech companies. And so now I'm really the expert. Like at the beginning, I felt like I knew a lot about that. But at this point, I've probably done more positioning with a B2B tech company than anybody else on the planet. Like, so if you're a B2B tech company and you got a problem with positioning, why would you pick someone other than me? You should pick me. And that is not where I started. Like at the beginning, I just looked like everybody else except worse, right? I'm a fractional CMO, except not from Facebook, not from wherever. So positioning is all about figuring out, where you're the best in the world at something. How do you pick that, narrow down on that, and then stick it long enough so that you actually are the best in the world at that thing? Yeah. Like, look at me, I'm nothing special, right? Really. I mean, if I can do this, anyone can do this. It helps that I spent 25 years being a VP marketing, but at the same time, there's no real magic here. Like, I had a thing I thought I was pretty good at, and then I just did it a lot over and over and over again. So I think for solopreneur, this is a good way to do it. But it takes discipline.
It gets back to focus. I think that's been the key theme here. Congrats on all your success. Thank you so much for taking the time and talking with us.
No problem. Thanks so much for having me.
That's April Dunford. I'm Dan Blumberg, and this is Crafted. Crafted is brought to you in partnership with Docker, which helps developers build, share, run, and verify applications anywhere without environment confirmation or management. More than 20 million developers worldwide use Docker's suite of development tools, services, and automations to accelerate the delivery of secure applications. Learn more at docker.com. Special thanks to Artium, where I launched Crafted. See how Artium can help you build your future at artium.ai. And Crafted is produced by Modern Product Minds, where my team and I can help you take a new product from 0 to 1 and beyond. We specialize in early-stage product discovery, growth, and experimentation. Learn more and sign up for the Crafted newsletter at modernproductminds.com. Please share Crafted with a friend because the competition's tough.
You thought you were competing with Coke, and you were competing with a muffin.